Hello, I'm William Gallagher, and this is the last of the current special editions of 58 Keys, where instead of being for writers like you and me who write on Macs and iPhones and iPads, it's been about writers who use this gear. Throughout August 2021, we have been talking with novelists, musicians, radio script writers, and all of these interviews are in an interview playlist here on the 58 Keys channel, along with a handful that I did in late 2020 as well. There will be more. Not going to wonder aloud whether future ones can be as good as this. I'll just think that. This one is Emma Reeves. She's a television writer, a stage writer, a radio writer. I'd say mostly television, and as well as writing TV, though. She's created series. She's won pretty much countless awards. And no, okay, look. If you let me go on, I'll keep you here all day. Let's you and I go meet Emma Reeves. Emma Reeves, thank you so much for being on 58 Keys. Fantastic that you're here.
Thank you for asking me.
Except you write television, you write stage, you write radio, Doctor Who, radio. You have won more awards than you told me about. In television, you write children's series. You've written for doctors, for adults. You've done a drama about Princess Diana that I only just heard about. You've done a stage adaptation of Cool Hand Luke, and you are crucial in the Writers Guild of Great Britain. How can you possibly have time to talk to me?
Well, I don't know if I'm exactly crucial in the Writers Guild. It takes up quite a bit of time, which is, but I think, as we know, William, that's you're doing it for the good of all writers, so it's a good thing to do.
That's true. It's good. I love the Guild, but you are crucial there. You've always been there since I started for it. Love what you do. This is 58 Keys. Is it's for writers who use Macs and iPhones and iPads, and this time it's about a writer who uses this. You use all of them, don't you? You were telling me Mac, iPad, iPhone.
Yes, I've got a lot of I've got all the products. I even had an iPod. In fact, I think I've still got one somewhere. I've got an iPhone, a sort of a big iPhone 12. I've got an iPad. I'm talking to you right now on my MacBook Pro because I'm not at my house. I'm at my parents' house, and I've got a big. Is it just called an iMac? I've had it for a couple of I've had it for quite. I've actually had it a few years now. The really big one on the desk. Yes.
Gorgeous machine.
Giant one. I've got one of those too. So I've got sort of several different sizes of screen of things.
I think actually, until you said that about sizes, it didn't pop into my head. But I realised one of the things I like about all this gear is that I can turn to whichever screen is near and carry on writing, and then turn to the other. Do you find you spread across all of them, or is it one device for one job?
I mostly use the two computers for writing, so the MacBook Pro and the iMac, but I can write on the iPad. I don't usually much, but because if you usually I can sort of use the MacBook Pro, but certainly I use the two computers quite a lot, and I think it's sort of getting. I mean, I'm sort of quite. I know that there are all these wonderful technical things that you can do, and I'm not necessarily great at them, but I've noticed sort of more and more that the computers are sort of just doing it for me. So so they're sort of backing up to each other, and so you go to the other computer, and they're sort of like, oh, I see you were working on this, but you can work on it here. Thank you. So it is actually quite addictive the way that it's sort of that the devices all sort of join up and sort of talk behind your back and do the work for you.
I was enjoying it till you said that. There's something sinister about
I know. As I said it, I began to realise.
You're predominantly a scriptwriter, right? So are you a Final Draft fan, for example?
I'm a Final Draft user. I mean, it's sort of I enjoy. I mean, the thing is, like, I mean, people are always telling me that other software is better. Sorry, Final Draft people. But it takes a little while. I mean, I'm still not sort of really au fait with all the new features they keep bringing on Final Draft, but it takes a little while to get used to sort of the mechanism of any program, doesn't it? And then you get used to it. So I'm kind of I find that I can sort of use Final Draft without thinking about it, because I use it a lot, and it has become a very widely accepted software in TV production. And in TV production, usually usually the show will demand you work on whatever they're using. And the BBC, or the bits of the BBC that I've worked for, tend to want you to work on Final Draft. And I think if obviously if you're not working on it, some poor people in the script department are going to have to go through and sort of convert everything constantly. So I use Final Draft. It's sort of, I believe it isn't true in America, but I think it's sort of, in my perception, become a kind of default industry standard in the UK for TV script writing, but I could be wrong. But I've just encountered it a lot, and I've encountered the expectation to use it. Like years ago, quite early in my career, I was on a show which used movie magic, but I haven't been on one of those for years.
I think I've heard of movie magic, but I've never seen it.
I didn't even know if it was still going. I just
But I know we talk about technology, and that's what 58 Keys is for. And it's really interesting that you know all this stuff. But I'm most interested in what you're actually using this stuff to write. So am I right that you're doing more Tracey Baker at the moment?
Yes. So as sort of Jacqueline Wilson fans and aficionados of Tracey Baker will know, it was based on a series of, well, originally one book, and then there were sequels by Jacqueline Wilson published in the 90s. And then a few years ago, Jacqueline wrote, she wondered what, because she having originally written the story of Tracey Baker in 1990, she thought, what would Tracey be doing now in her early 30s? And she wrote this book, My Mum Tracey Baker, about how the grown-up Tracey, who's got a 10-year-old daughter, has a romance with an old friend who's now become a famous footballer. So we did that last year as a 3-parter, and as a sort of, well, we did it as a 3-parter, and they also did a kind of edited together movie version, which I actually kind of prefer because of given the weight of the stories, where there was sort of, they were, rather than having sort of 3 exactly even episodes, they were able to sort of include a bit more material in the last third, which I thought made it work. But anyway, sorry, I'm going off on one. But that was what we did last year. My Mum Tracey Baker, and we are currently doing an adaptation with some added elements of the Jacqueline sequel to My Mum Tracey Baker, which is called We Are the Baker Girls. We are currently working on that. We're just finalizing scripts. They're about to start shooting on Monday. That's going to be a 5-parter. Title not quite confirmed yet. Is it My Mum Tracey Baker series 2, or is it the Baker Girls? Or there's also been some discussion that calling something the Baker Girls might put off boys, and there are male characters in it as well. So it might be called the Bakers, but it's a sequel to My Mum Tracey Baker. So it's essentially My Mum Tracey Baker series 2. Sorry, there's always quite a lot to explain in the Jacqueline world.
But I'm a sucker for a good title. And the moment I saw My Mum Tracey Baker, if you ever heard of Tracey Baker, you had to watch that. It's like, it was just something utterly compelling about that character growing up and in this position of being a parent to someone like herself, or just irresistible for it.
Yes, that's what our Gina, the exec producer, I think she's keen to just keep the title My Mum Tracey Baker, because yes, as you say, it's a good title.
I'm very intrigued though about that bit of the 3-parter versus the movie version, because the rhythm and the pace is different and things. But do you mean you're saying that you could give more weight to the end of the story? Does that mean material was filmed for it that couldn't be fitted into the episode and was?
Yes, it's just, I think it was edited differently. So so obviously, you write scripts and some bits don't make it into the final cut. And I think with the 3rd episode, there was a lot in there, and I think obviously, you fit in what you can, and sometimes it's just a question of, if you look at the final third of the movie version versus the the sort of the individual 3 episode version, there is, there'll be a few extra lines or extra bits, but also just sometimes the end of a scene, the camera will linger longer before moving to the next scene, and sometimes that's that, and sometimes that just obviously tells a story in itself, or just gives a moment more weight to land. And of course, and that's what you can do when you're not sort of being pressured by the schedule of everything has to be. I think it's it always varies depending on what they want right now, or sort of whether they want to sort of cut more, to have the more time for idents, or and sometimes there's a previously and a next time, and of course the title sequence, but it's usually something like 27 and a quarter or a half or 3/4 minutes that you've got, and it's obviously on TV very rigid. So it's nice to have that sort of, and because I think the 90-minute version maybe they'll play it on CBBC, but it was sort of mostly designed for iPlayer only. And of course, obviously on iPlayer, you can, if you're making something for an on-demand service, not that people often do, because I think people are always thinking of, well, how can it also be shown on regular TV? But obviously, in theory, when things are on an on-demand service, you don't have to stick to rigid time schedules. And if you look at some of the Netflix shows, or the shows sort of deliberately made to be on streamers rather than to be on scheduled TV, some of them, for me, it looks like this joyous anarchy in length of episodes. They're just sort of like, we'll take as long as the story takes. Thank you. Some of them will be shorter. Some of them will be longer. So,
is that freeing or actually too liberal? Are they going to be loose because they can?
I don't know. I haven't worked on any of those shows. I look at it and think, great. It's sort of like, if it's if you're sort of aiming for 40 minutes, but your story takes 54, or your story takes 33, great. The story takes its time. But I have never worked on one of those shows, so it's probably awful. I don't know.
Actually, it's something I was thinking about. You have this massive range: children, adults, radio, stage, film. Just Doctor Who radio, all of this stuff. But you are mostly known for children's series, and I'm wondering, is that because you love children's series, or is it this thing that once you're really successful in one field, that's what everybody keeps hiring you for?
I do really love children's, and it's sort of it's something that if you stay for a while, then anything. It's sort of, there are good and bad things. The good is that you really do begin to you sort of learn your industry and your craft, and you sort of really learn the world of it. I think there's also obviously a danger that you get too kind of house trained, and sort of, I'm always trying to sort of not fall into the trap of like, that can't be done because we don't do that, or no one does it yet, But yeah, certainly I think it's like with all jobs, as I was explaining to my nephew last night, if you do one sort of job, you will get a lot of offers to do something similar. And I think and I am sort of working on different projects and hoping to get to get them greenlit. But as anyone who works in TV knows, it's a lot of sort of working on things, trying to decide sort of where to divide your energies, what you hope might go, and what might not. A project which I thought was dead about 3 or 4 years ago has just sort of come back to flickering potential life. So that might happen. So.
That's excellent. And of course, I want to know what that is, but of course you can't tell me. How about this? Make it broader then. You obviously write a lot of shows, but you create and you co-create things. That project that's come back after 3 years, I presume, are you creating that? Is that all yours?
It's based on a series of books again, but it's quite a sort of loose adaptation. So there's a lot of sort of world building in the in the sort of but working on the Bible and the script. So yeah, sort of it's like a lot of things, it's a bit of a mixture. As I think everyone will tell you that TV at the moment, I'm sure it was always true, is very sort of wedded to existing IPs, and and they sort of quite like to be presented with something. It's sort of like, yes, this exists, even if the final product might be a bit different. I mean, most of the ones, I mean, though most of the adaptations I've done so far have been, or I've tried to sort of be quite faithful to. It's interesting, it's like quite often you have to sort of obviously invent and also sort of tweak around plots to make things sort of work. But I think you usually try to make sure that we're true to sort of the world and the characters, and then quite often people don't really notice plot if you've made it feel like the work of, the beloved work that people have come to see.
Creation sounds like it's a big job, lots of persuading people, lots of presumably writing proposals and pitches and treatments and things. That feels like a very different writing muscle to script writing. Is that section, proposing and developing, fun in a way, or is it a chore that you have to get through to the fun bit?
I think it's, and I sort of, it's something I should obviously do more of. I think sort of, I mean, I think there's an element of it which is obviously when you're starting it, there's always a great sort of excitement at the beginning of a project, and it's sort of sort of after sort of the grimness sometimes of clinging on and seeing something through to the end, it's always exciting to start a new thing. I think what kind of hampers me, and probably most writers in the sort of early development stages of something, is that sort of cynical, pessimistic, but nothing's going to happen with this anyway, sort of thing. So that's the sort of thing you have to, the challenge for me is sort of, yes, getting through that bit, and particularly because people always, you're usually working with somebody and getting notes and sort of and they're asking for various revisions. I'm just thinking guiltily of things I owe people right now, and it's sort of like, and it's sort of, and you're often sort of, because also and I'm sure you speak to much more successful writers than me, and they will tell you the same, that you sort of put your heart and soul into a project and you really believe in it, and you sort of really try and put things in there which are very heartfelt, and you really think you've got a great thing here, and then nothing happens with it, and you sort of feel, you can feel very, very knocked back. And I think sometimes but it's like with any sort of creative thing, you sort of need, like actors will always tell you, you need to be sort of thin-skinned enough and in touch with your own emotions to be able to use them to create the work, but you also have to be really, really tough to sort of take all the constant rejection. So I think when you're working on new things, quite often there's this sort of trying to get over the memory of the last time you really believed in something and nothing happened with it. So so there's so it's constantly sort of trying to sort of, yes, use that excitement about a new thing and how great it could be, and trying not to think, oh, it'll never happen. So yes.
I'll tell you what, let's go totally different. How did you get involved with Doctor Who for Big Finish? How did that happen?
Well, it was somebody I knew, a friend of mine from way back, James Gotts, who was running the Torchwood range at the time, and he asked me to write a Torchwood story, so I did, and then I did another one, and then sort of various people like Matt Fitton and Alan Barnes that just asked me to do other things for them. So yeah, so I ended up doing a few different things for them. So it's funny. It's sort of a bit of, I know it sounds very much like Who You Know at Big Finish. And I think yeah, it's the sort of organization, I think, and I know that they are constantly looking for new writers, and particularly looking for more diverse writers. But it's a sort of, it's an operation sort of run sort of by fans, so like very much for sort of, in many ways, for the love of it. So that's kind of how it works. Have you done Big Finish yourself?
Yes,
Oh
and
yes.
they do. The passion in that organisation. It's the only group of producers I've worked with that are that obsessive. I mean, everybody gets into their own show, but they know it so well. Those people you mentioned, they're great writers and all real fans. But are you a Doctor Who fan, or was this just another job?
Oh yes, no. I mean, I don't think you could really do Big Finish as if it's just another job. To be honest, or I couldn't. I mean, that was the thing, and again, it was a sort of a curse and a blessing, because I mean that was the reason I was so excited to do it, because all the Doctor Who things I did were things I was really passionate about, and I think at the time I was very aware that I was mostly known for writing children's TV, and the first one was Tortured, which is very much not really children's. And I think I was quite, I was so nervous and wanting to get it right that I almost sort of froze up, really. I think it was some, I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, and that's why James asked me, because we'd known each other since uni, and he knew I was a Doctor Who fan from back then. So I think that's why. And I think, I think I know there's some sort of disagreement, but I think sort of with a show with a history as vast as Doctor Who's, I think it's definitely an advantage to be a fan, because I think people always say, oh, let's get in new voices who don't know anything about it. But if you don't know anything about it, you don't know what's already been done. So I think being a fan is very important, in the Big Finish world. And yes, and I was a huge Doctor Who and Torchwood fan, and that was so. But yes, but I say that's why it made me really keen to do it, and really excited, and sort of kept me going through the bouts of self-disbelief. But of course, it makes you sort of more paranoid, because you really, you really don't want to do a disservice to these characters.
Yeah, why do you do this? Why don't you just get an ordinary job somewhere?
I think by this point it's just like, I don't know what ordinary job I can do. Actually, I think I've probably tried over the years, not got ordinary jobs. So I think it's I don't know. I think it's a personality, isn't it? Because I think I think if I got an ordinary job, I would probably obsess a bit about that. So I think some people's personalities, there is a sort of group that like really wants to put everything in it, like we put a lot of work into our work with the Guild, William.
Yeah, the Writers Guild of Great Britain. I mean, I don't know how long you've been there. Ever since I've been involved in the Guild, you've been there and involved in all of this work. The thing I love about the Guild, it raises the money and the paying conditions for all writers, whether they're members or not. I think that's incredible for it. And you have this long history with the Guild. What are you doing with them now?
I was sort of formally elected as TV chair of the committee, and I have been there now for, I think, nearly 6 years. So I think I do have to step down from that role next year, because there are Guild rules about how long you can serve. So we're looking for somebody else to take over the TV committee at that point. But I also do some of the negotiations and going to the BBC forum, and I think I'll sort of talk, which has always been as kind of part of my job as TV chair. But we do, as you say, we do a lot of good things for writers. We're constant negotiator, and we negotiate on behalf of all writers. So if we negotiate a pay rise, all writers get it. The Guild was very, very instrumental in creating WDP, which is Writers' Digital Payments, which are payments so that anyone who's got their work on iPlayer or the ITV catch-up service should be getting sporadic checks through every so often. They do a big distribution, and I think I think I'm not sure where they're up to, but I think there should be a distribution coming up for the whole of 2020, which obviously streaming services were very busy in 2020. So hopefully that should be a nice check for everyone who had work on a streaming service at that point.
Including you with the feature-length version of My Mum Tracey Baker. There you go.
Yeah,
This
fingers
is how you
crossed.
can afford all this Apple gear, isn't it? Clearly.
Yes.
I didn't ask you about stage. I didn't ask you about all the other shows you've worked in. Touch on Princess Diana, but listen, Emma Reeves, thank you so much for being on. I'm really glad I got to talk to you. Thank you.
What did I tell you? Emma Reeves. I've worked with Emma at the Writers Guild, as you now know, and I've seen her speak at events. So I knew she was interesting. I knew the things she's been doing, but she writes on a Mac, on a MacBook, on an iPad, on an iPhone. I did not know that she is one of us. Thanks, Emma. Thanks to the UK's Arts Council for all their help with developing these interview episodes. I'm so grateful. And thank you for watching this edition of 58 Keys and subscribing. You subscribed, right? Oh, come on, all these great interviews, yeah. Some 8 great interviews are already in the 58 Keys channel playlist. And there is a peculiar 9th one that's me interviewing me. Yeah, there were reasons. There's no need to ask. Let's not go there. Look at the rest of them. Some of those people are my writing heroes. I love that we got to talk to them. Thank you for watching this. Take care of yourself, eh? Write more, and I'll see you soon.